Edgar Casey claimed that the Atlanteans made space travel and even had bases on other planets like Mars. And then he also claimed that they collected energy from the cosmos through like huge crystals. Different stories make two separate claims that the Atlanteans were benevolent humans who fell into evil, while another claims that they came from another solar system and they were already a genetics that predisposed them to be cold and cruel. But there's so many different versions of what happened. Like, you can easily go on YouTube and you can see like 50 different people with 50 different interpretations of Atlanteans. Evidence-wise, the only real thing that was presented about Atlantis was Plato, and he was writing the Republic and used it as a reference. You gotta kind of put that into perspective too.
The Agarthian or Agarian alien race are believed to be an Asiatic Nordic offshoot of humanity who are believed to be the descendants of ancient Atlanteans and Lemurians who fled underground via a global network of caverns and caves in the aftermath of an ancient nuclear war between Atlantis and Lemuria. And when they fled into the Earth, they built a civilization inside of the Earth, which is believed to be hollow by those who believe in the Agarthian inner Earth dwellers. The inner Earth world is believed to be lit by a smoky central sun. It is believed that the Agartha were first referenced by a book called The Smoky God, which was written by an author by the name of Willis Emerson. And the book was a biography of a Norwegian sailor named Olaf Jensen, whose ship apparently sailed through an entrance to the hollow, to the interior of the Earth and the North Pole. And once he accidentally sailed through this entrance to the hollow Earth, he lived with the Agarthians for 2 years. And in this book, Emerson writes that the colonists he lived with were 12 feet tall, and that their world was lit by a smoky central sun. One of the colonies of the Agarthian people was Shambhala the Lesser. That was the seat of government, and this is an inner continent. Its satellite colonies are smaller enclosed ecosystems located deep beneath the Earth's crust or discreetly within mountains. The Agarthians were first referenced and that we know of in the modern era, and by whom. That was the main detail of that overview I wanted to give. Olaf Jensen. He lived with the Agarthian peoples in the inner Earth for 2 years, and they told him their history about Atlantis and Lemuria. Atlantis was first written about by Plato, as we all know. It was a land beyond the Straits of Gibraltar, which was an advanced civilization. So according to the Norwegian sailor Olaf Jensen, who was referenced in the book The Smoky God by Willis Emerson, he lived with the Agarthian inner Earth dwellers for 2 years after he sailed into the North Pole, and they told him that they were an offshoot of humanity from Atlantis and Lemuria that fled underground during an ancient nuclear war between those two great civilizations. Now, Atlantis was first written about by Plato and was described as a land beyond the Straits of Gibraltar and the Great Sea, which was an advanced civilization, and it was sunk by the gods as punishment for degeneracy and evil. Now, the Atlantean-Lemurian War is directly referred to again by author Willis Emerson in his book Agartha, Secrets of the Subterranean Cities, but it also appears to be referenced and eerily similar stories and myths throughout the world and millennia, from the Hopi Indians in North America, the Egyptians, ancient India, and ancient Greece.
The Mesopotamians, these Sumerians, and that they also showed, these reptilian gods. Same in Babylon, same in Egypt, same in India. The Asuras and the Nagas, they're all related to these reptilian gods. The reptilians ensured that the new man could be forever attached to the reptilian frequency because the foundational prototype was reptilian. This meant that the new man could easily be mentally controlled by them. Upon discovery of this information, that the reptilians wanted to control the new race, the Atlanteans began a severe electromagnetic bombardment of Lemuria. This bombardment caused the bulk of the continent to submerge into the ocean, now called the Pacific Ocean. The only parts left above the water are the Hawaiian Islands, the Californian coast west of the San Andreas Fault, Australia, New Zealand, and the South Pacific Islands, Japan, the Philippines, Taiwan, and the islands southeast of Asia. The inner Earth became the homeland for most of the surviving reptilians of Lemuria. Here they created a vast underground civilization. This started the legends of hell and demons living in fire under the earth. They built tubes containing fast subway-like vehicles that can travel to any part of the earth within a few hours. They created the famed underground cities of Acadia, Agartha, Hyperborea, and Shambhala that are sought by explorers to this very day. These cities were built along the inside wall of the interior crust that lines the interior of the Earth. Remember that the hollow Earth is not a theory, but a scientific fact caused by the cooling and spinning of a planet as it is ejected from a star or sun. Australia was actually connected to Papua New Guinea fully. You can see this light blue area, and that's where they say the Aboriginal people came from originally, genetically speaking. They walked from Asia to Australia, so all of this was connected at some point. So you could literally have walked from India to Australia at one point. They also speak about Atlantis being a sun-worshipping society, and it's interesting how Japan was connected to China at one point. You can see here also light blue, and where Japan is the land of the rising sun, hinting at this ancient Atlantean mythology coming back and rising up again. Same with Egypt, also sun worshipping, right? You'll see that same theme. What I've found out through my travels in India and sort of researching all these different mythologies is I realized that there's parallels between India, Iraq, or Mesopotamia and Egypt and Greece, eventually Rome. All of their gods line up, and they just have different words for the same gods, including Zeus and Poseidon, and these characters. And according to Plato, Poseidon was the king of Atlantis. I'd have to bring my research up, but I found parallels of that same god in Hindu mythology as well. And eventually that sort of branched off into Nordic and German mythology as well. So you find these very same stories, same parallels, same associations with Poseidon having the trident, for example. You'll find Krishna has the same kind of trident, and you'll see this sort of themes run across the different mythologies.
Yeah, Atlantis. From what I understand, Atlantis was out for world domination, and they were ruled over by a confederation of kings who decided to go ahead and invade all of Europe and Asia, which by and large was the Lemurian civilization. and they wound up in a war using what the ancient Indians, the Indians in India used astra weapons. The Brahmastras, in particular, were used between the two civilizations, which would emit a flash as bright as 1,000 suns, followed by a trail of smoke that rose into the heavens. When they describe it, it sounds like they're describing a nuclear weapon. I think that also included like Australia and modern day Australia, New Zealand, and Japan. A lot of the Pacific islands were part of it. It may have even been up on its northern fringe, connected to North America at one point. Who knows exactly who was the good guys and who was the bad guys in that conflict, or if maybe it was both of them, you know. It's hard to say. When you listen to what the research I did on the ancient Hindu texts and stuff, where they talk about a great war and like the Hopis, they appear to be telling a very similar story to what Plato said. So it's not too much of a leap to put them together, but we don't know for sure. I mean, I don't know if there's any way to know for sure if that's exactly what they were referring to. And then of course the Egyptian priesthood told a very similar story to that Plato later also discussed but it's hard to say if they're all talking about exactly the same thing. It seems that they are. So that's kind of what I'm going on, is it just seems that they are. It seems to really add up. But I mean, can I prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt with cold, concrete evidence? No. Hinduism is the predominant religion in India and has shaped its culture for at least the last 5,000 years. The central texts of Hinduism are the Vedic texts and the Upanishads. Both were originally written in an ancient dialect of the Indian language known as Sanskrit. This is important for understanding the terminology the ancient Hindus used in the Vedas and the Upanishads when referring to ancient wars and the weapons that were used. First, we'll dive into the weapons that the Hindu epics discussed having been used in many of their mythological wars. These weapons were called astras, that's spelled A-S-T-R-A. Now, an astra in ancient Sanskrit is a supernatural weapon, and each astra, of which there are nearly 100 different kinds, are presided over by a specific deity and imbued with spiritual and occult powers which cause their effects. Usually these weapons are released from the hand of a bearer, and a bearer of an astra is called, in Sanskrit, the Astradhari. Astras first came into importance in the Ramayana and Mahabharata texts, where they were used in battles described in each of these epics. The specific astras I'm going to cover here include the Brahmastra, which was overseen by the chief deity in the Hindu pantheon known as Brahma. This was believed to be one of the most powerful of the astras, and it was charged with all of the energy of the universe, and was capable of emitting a flash as bright and as hot as 1,000 suns, followed by a trail of smoke that rose high into the heavens. And it would unleash a fearsome wind. And it was thought to be an arrow released from Brahma's hands, or the hands of warriors who he imbued this weapon to, that was capable of unleashing this said explosion.